Hey, hey, hey. Damn, I guess we know where all the listeners were coming from. Bunsy's the GOAT.
Yeah, I guess so. It's gonna be sad not to have him on
Farmer,
stage
fake KOL.
today. Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. No. Let's see if people pop in. We can just do a quick little sprint, I suppose. But if yeah, I know we didn't necessarily share the link before the show came out, so maybe we just yeah, we can just freestyle it, I suppose.
Yeah, you might as well change the space title to Three-Way Call with Farmer, Matt, and Rob from Satflow. And anybody who wants to listen in, feel free to join. So what's going on?
So I was just speaking to my legendary hedge fund friend, and he's saying Bitcoin's about to hit 72K in September. Um, what that means for ordinals, I have no idea, but he's rocking a Bitcoin shroom in the audience. For anyone that doesn't know, there's been a series of tweets that leak the source of my macro intelligence, and my hedge fund friend is real. The source is real. Whether I say tweets that he's told me directly is a different story. I do like to make things up just to keep things spicy on the timeline once in a while. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. Matt, I know we had a call about a lot of this stuff before, and I guess I was just thinking about it before. Like I guess before is how important is decentralization right now to everyone using, I guess, the L1. I mean, dot swap shows us that there's some element of decentralization needed. One, incentivizing liquidity pools is a tricky ask, especially when you have custodial risk in general. But I guess the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle right now is people just want to be using something. We're just in like the slowest period of time on both Bitcoin L1 and even like the macro crypto landscape. Bitcoin was at like 58K. I know Robert smacked that dip, and he posted a little, or he shared with me a screenshot saying that he made the news for buying the dip, perfectly timed, three times. So yeah, once a trader, always a trader. But I guess the question here really is, what do people really care about? Solana initially was maybe not as decentralized as other chains, but people cared about it because it was fast. It was a good ecosystem to build with. And I think like the thing that they've done very well, and I keep talking about Solana, and my bias towards Solana is starting to show, but the more I use the chain, the more I like it, and the more teams that I actually talk to that are coming from Sol that don't necessarily understand why they should be building on Bitcoin, primarily because the tooling just sucks. There's how do you have an indexer network? How do you build RPCs, APIs and so forth? It's just yeah, it's just trickier. Um, I think that the answer is people want functionality for the value that they currently hold, and most people, myself included, just want to start doing things with these assets. But before before ordinals kind of launched, we were trading on spreadsheets, and I know this kind of sounds insane, but most people were thinking that marketplaces would be the value unlock. And then when the marketplaces actually came alive, there was no real new buyers. It was just, oh, now I can actually sell easier without using a spreadsheet. And a lot of these early ordinals assets in that point in time actually dropped in value substantially. You had things like, I forget what the name of the original punks on Bitcoin was called. Not Bitcoin punks. There was another collection, ordinal punks, and those things were +4 to even 6 BTC, OTC through spreadsheets alone. And then the moment that a marketplace came into play, the values just got crushed all the way down to 1 BTC, which I think is still a substantial amount of money for some of the first ordinals. And then we got into the sub 10K narratives and sub 1K narratives and everything, but I guess the question is, and maybe Robert is kind of also thinking in this way too, but does greater fungibility on the L1, greater expressivity on the L1, basically just mean that people can sell easier, or is it going to be one of those events where it brings a larger pie to Bitcoin? Robert, I know you're in the audience, but if you wanted to speak on this a little bit. I'm kind of curious what you're thinking, and I know Harry also was an OG with Ordinal's Wallet and kind of can speak to this as well. So happy to have you up here as well, Matt. I guess just before Robert and Harry join is like when did you join Ordinals? Because I still don't really know what kind of got you into this. What's the kind of backstory here?
No, it's actually kind of funny because mostly coming from the Ethereum world, I mean, at least like intensely from the 2020 cycle, I distinctly remember there being a time when I'm like driving the car on the way to my sneaker store that I own in Tampa, and I hear on these not it wasn't even Twitter Spaces at the time, it was like Clubhouse rooms, and and people were talking about ordinals, and I thought it was like an NFT collection on Ethereum. It was like, I don't know what this like collection is, but I'm pretty bearish on it. I haven't heard enough from the team. And I didn't like really understand what was going on back then. And then I kind of got orange pilled by some guys from the Stacks ecosystem, and started watching the Block Runners podcast a lot more. And I think Bitmaps really did it for me. Is that was kind of like the thing that I jumped into first, and continued to dive pretty deep, and then that led me to joining the Bitcoin Startup Lab, and the rest is history. But going back to your earlier point, I think that like in any new and evolving like L1 chain, or like programmable ecosystem, we'll call it, because that's kind of like what this building on Bitcoin ecosystem really is. Like there's going to be this period of time where user experience is lacking, and in order to kind of get to that full-fledged vision of decentralization and scale, you have to deal with a lot of growing pains. And this definitely happened in Ethereum back in like 2017, 2018, and it definitely happened in Solana back in 2020. Like I remember, like nobody cared about Solana in 2020. Like it almost sounded like a venereal disease kind of chain versus everything that was happening on Ethereum. Like if you're dabbling in premium NFTs and stuff, and you're doing the DeFi dance on Ethereum, even in the layer two landscape, which was starting to evolve at that time, like the idea of Solana was like, ew. Like, why would I go buy NFTs over there? Why would I go trade over there? It wasn't even like the user experience trumped what the other ecosystem was providing at that point in time. So like over time, that user experience gets better and better and better, and the decentralization gets better and better and better. So it's just going to take some time to get there. And you mentioned dot swap. Like I think that's what they're sort of doing, is like they're mostly focused on the user experience right now, without necessarily but like caring about decentralization to the fullest of its extent. And then over time, they'll be able to further decentralize the and the risk vectors that the liquidity providers are entertaining by using platforms like Arch. So I think it's coming, but it's just, people can't let it happen fast enough, or can't see it happen fast enough, I should say.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Yeah, I guess you. So when was that when you joined the Bitcoin Startup Labs? Because I guess it would have been after Bitmaps, which was kind of mid last year. When you had your Bitmaps, were you following along everything that was going on the Merlin side of things?
No, no, like I did not care at all about Merlin. I was mostly just listening to the guys on block runners, and I drew comparisons to the sandbox, land grab that I participated in back in 2020, which did quite well for a period of time. And I definitely like understood this concept of like Bitcoin is sort of like this decentralized server that you never have to rely on Amazon or Google or Microsoft or any of these like cloud software servers to host this data. Like Bitcoin can be this totally always on network that you can inscribe data on, and that's when ordinal sort of made sense, and that's how data availability on Bitcoin made sense to me all of a sudden. So I like the idea of these metaverse like plots where you can own your own little piece of the internet, essentially. Your own little corner, and you can build different things, whether it's a game or an application or a website or whatever. You never have a utility bill or never have a server bill or anything like that, which I thought was pretty fascinating. So I kind of aped into that. And yeah, I also became pretty fascinated with the OCM community and what Danny had built with recursion and parent-child provenance and stuff like that. So like I really fell in love with the technical components more so than any of like the ordinal collections like node monks or puppets or anything like that, which is, I'm quite regretful, obviously, because
Yeah.
rest is history.
Yeah, well, regretful or not, a lot of the people that have fallen in love with the art are truly bag holding at this point, hence the copium and hopium update here. I mean, obviously, it really depends on when you enter the space, enter the ecosystem. For me, it was, I would say the Bitcoin ecosystem initially was very much like a tradable opportunity. Making point 0.1, point 0.5 BTC every single day felt like a bit of a rush, especially when you're just trading spreadsheet opportunities. But then obviously, trying to think beyond what the spreadsheets really hold, kind of got me into the fact that Bitcoin will have an ecosystem. And I was just waiting for the day that we finally had like a wallet, like a web wallet that can actually allow us to use this chain functionally. And I think like the first one that kind of wasn't necessarily a web wallet per se, but it was a browser wallet, which Ordinal's wallet kind of created. So most of my initial Ordinals were really in Ordinal's wallet themselves. And I know Ordinal's wallet was a massive, massive source for all bitmap inscriptions themselves. Obviously, doing the visual map, I thought was a very cool way to help people fill in the gaps. And then you had, I believe there was like soul maps that Chartfu and the Magic Eden guys cooked up, and we were just narrative hopping originally, right? Like Harry, wanted to get your take because I think you're much closer to the bitmap ecosystem than I am. A lot of people faded it because it's just a text file, and it's a perpetually increasing plot that moves on the state of one block equals one plot. But has anything actually formed over time in the bitmap community? Am I missing something?
You know, there was a lot of early development from like the Merlin guys. They built 3 or 4 different apps before Merlin Chain. It was like bitmap.game. There's a few other kind of stuffs and like the BRC 420s kind of developed. But it's not like anything's really this one metaverse where all the assets are there. But certainly has like spurred people on to experiment a lot more. If you've been following like the tap ecosystem, they have all this DMT tap stuff, which is another thing that the block runner guys kind of talk about, but it's to kind of apply the same ideas around bitmap but for fungible tokens. um but yeah, I don't it's like, to me it's a little bit I don't really know what's next. People have kind of experimented. The prices are where they are, so I'm not sure. But yeah, the bitmap summer was last year. I was really like a pretty crazy summer, and I do remember making that map. And bitmap was just a very organic thing. Like I was just on a Twitter space listening to people talk about bitmap. I didn't quite get it as well. I was like, okay, it's just a number. I've already inscribed a million like .sat names. Why do I care about .bitmap? So I definitely faded for a few days, but then yeah, I listened to a Twitter space and someone was talking about how to like express it visually. And I really like live on that Twitter space spent like 30 minutes and I built that map and then everyone just started like mass minting. It was insane.
Yeah, no, I mean that was pretty crazy to see people be very excited. I always kind of thought that the Merlin team was actually the founders of this whole bitmap concept. Do you know a little bit more about that? Like, I know Merlin kind of came out of the bitmap community?
Yeah, I
Eh,
don't think so. I know it was this Blakamoto guy, which is a separate entity. Like he was building his own product originally, and that's kind of slowed down. You know, he's open sourced some of the tooling because he was able to create a really like the map we made was not very performant. It wasn't like high FPS. It was like in JavaScript and like very memory intensive and expensive to operate on a computer and like a phone. And then Blakamoto made this like more higher fidelity performant rendering stuff, and then he eventually open sourced that. But yeah, it hasn't. There's no like main place anyone goes anymore. But yeah, I attribute a lot of Bitmap's success to what the Merlin team was building before I even realized they were working on Merlin.
Which was what, just to be clear?
They had this. The main one was bitmap.game, and it was this 3D map, and you could go onto any bitmap and you could have a character and it would like look at your wallet. So I'd like log in and I'd be my Pixel Pepe walking around any bitmap, and you could see who's online on each bitmap, and it would like light up. Like if I had 100 bitmaps, all my bitmaps would be like showing a different color on the map to show that I was online. So you would like look at the whole bitmap and see all the different people online, and you could jump into spaces and like talk to people. That was bitmap that game, and it may still be around, but I don't think it's as hot as it was.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the bitmap phase was, I guess, short-lived in some capacities, and Merlin hasn't necessarily proven out to be, the most viable L2. There was a lot of kind of FUD friction around people having their $3 bitmaps stuck and having to pay a transaction fee for each and one of them. So, do you know how many bitmaps are actually stuck on Merlin simply because it's not viable to bridge them back, or
I'm
uh,
not sure. I did not participate.
gotcha.
Um, yeah, when everyone, I just kind of started doing shitters on Solana when everyone was trading on Merlin because the coins were like very similar market caps, and like there'd be like 20, 30 coins on Solana daily that would like beat all the Merlin coins. So I didn't really understand.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's fair. And
No liquidity.
it
I
seems like
wanted to go back to when you were talking about trading on spreadsheets, because last week you asked me about some alpha. Um, in the so like originally, yeah, ordinals started like trading on spreadsheets, and then they've moved to PSBTs to like do a more kind of on-chain swap. But I don't think this is like the last evolution of how we trade. um, PSPTs are great, but the problem is it does fragment a lot of the liquidity. Like when you list for sale on OKX or Unisat, it doesn't show up on Magic Eden, or if you list on Ordinal's wallet, it doesn't show. None of the marketplaces share their PSPTs. This is their prized possessions. They don't want to share it because if they share it, they lose out on the fee they can charge from revealing that signature. So like as Robert knows, the only way right now to like get this global liquidity is by mempool sniping. Um, but there is some stuff you can do with opcat. So I've been working with a guy who is pretty good at low level scripting, and we've made a way to do on chain listings. So um, I think this is, and it's validated by the Bitcoin node using opcat. So you can list your inscription or rune, whatever UTXO you have, for sale on chain, and then it's a global order book via the node. Like you don't have to, you
Harry, I
know.
guess the question really is, why would a marketplace want to do this? There is no real benefit to kind of own.
No, I mean, like on Solana, you have cross-program
Ah,
invocations, right? Like you're able to aggregate listings and liquidity a lot better if
Yeah.
you can pull the state across multiple applications. But if the PSBT order book lives in Magic Eden servers, then there's no opportunity to share that, across programs. So
Well, the
to Harry's
question is,
point,
do they even want to share the order book? Is the
So here,
question.
yeah, I mean, I really let's take it from the vantage point of Ordinal's wallet, which is like a minority. Um, we're a small minority market share. So generally, I want people to be able to list for sale on Ordinal's wallet, um, and it gets bought quick. If it's a hot item. So in order for that to happen, it's like you get the free advertising. So if we do maybe on Bell's Coin or um, Fractal, one of these early opcat chains, do this on-chain listing and see if we can work with other, this other Bell's marketplace or these other, Fractal marketplaces to enable the on-chain listing, or even if we just do it ourselves and publish it, I don't see why they wouldn't want to accept our listings as well, automatically. Instead of some API integration, it would be native on-chain, so the coordination's just
But I guess the
better.
question is, if I'm listing it on Magic Eden, what incentive does Magic Eden have to say, hey, we're gonna list, cross list this across the board, right?
sell it faster.
Well, I mean, does it mean? I guess that's. But they want to be the centralized, application. You know what I mean? I think every team, I mean, Magic Eden included, you can just kind of view the fact that they own all the collection details.
Yep.
They're not
So
willing to reveal that as well. It's just because it gives them an edge to be, this aggregator of all information on Bitcoin itself, and I mean, in many ways, like the indexer of data, details, and metadata to these collections. Despite that not being on chain, I think. How does it work on Ethereum? Like, does the
yeah,
indexing of
this is
collections
how it is on
exist?
Ethereum and Solana. They all use smart contracts that they can all call from, the chain, the RPCs return everything that's listed.
But is someone
That's what I was
able
going to
to
say,
index
Harry, is
everything?
like the reason why we can't do these cross-program composability is because there are no smart contracts, right? Like you're using literally an order book with PSBTs. To your point, saying like the mempool is going to start to become a little bit of the actual real market to some degree, and that's where products like Satflow and Magisat ultimately live. Is like that's the market. Forget the centralized order book that you see on Magic Eden. Eventually, just the market becomes the mempool. But in that opcat example is quite interesting. I'll admit, doing on-chain listings, because that would technically solve your issue, right? Like it would be up to Magic Eden to subscribe to on-chain listings at that point if they want to include it in their marketplace. Otherwise, they're missing out on actual listings that people can potentially purchase. So
Yeah.
I think that's
And
interesting.
ultimately
But
it's
this is also what,
it could
like, by
be,
default Arch enables, right? Like it will to some degree require trust assumptions on the verifier network, but you do get that aggregator composability and cross program invocations that you can now utilize within Arch, because you have smart contracts and global state within the system.
Interesting. I mean, Arch is a very novel concept, but do you know of any people that are also trying to do something similar to you guys? maybe using the EVM by any chance? Matt?
I mean, like virtually all layer twos are trying to use the EVM essentially to scale Bitcoin. Everyone except for Stacks, but uh, yeah. Also, I understand that like the programmable module that BRC20 is working on with Best in Slots also leverages the EVM to some degree as well. So I do, yeah, like that's one side of it. We're
Yeah,
taking the other route, it's kind of like building our own VM.
fair enough. Fair enough. No, that's fair. Yeah, Harry, anything in Opcat specifically that you guys are building for Ordinal's wallet on Bells or Fractal? Beyond like the order book side of things, that you think could be interesting to expand the scope. And then I have another actually interesting musing, more so on like Matt's BRC20 take, but I'll uh
Um,
I'll let that simmer.
well, I'll say first off, I think like the way to do this specific one is to try to get it into like the Ord client. So everyone that's running Ord would be, also could index listings and then buy and sell via like the Ord command line wallet. So then it's just zero fee trading. And then from there, it's like developers could integrate into their own websites. Um, but I don't know how long that's going to take. I really don't know the specifics of making this happen, but there are some iterations, of the order book. Like you could potentially do partial rune orders. That's another thing that's kind of interesting, but I'm not 100% sure that's possible yet either.
Got it. I mean, in your take, BRC20 versus runes, the idea here is that BRC20 had a struggle taking off because any sort of counterbalance transfer needed to be, there was this like friction point of you need to inscribe another transfer back to that party, whereas like runes, to my understanding, simplifies the back end logic from any sort of product team. Is that right, Harry?
Yeah, I mean, there's like what no official BRC20 indexer, and there wasn't for a long, long time. Whereas with like runes, there was.
Got it. So in terms of like the indexing, I guess runes are much more decentralized as an indexer, because everyone's kind of running the same version.
Yeah, and I guess there's clear leadership. Like even BRC20 could go multiple directions. Who actually is in charge?
Right.
It's
That's right.
really a
Yeah.
community takeover with a lot of people that are heavily invested in BRC20, which is cool. But it's just like there's a lot going on there. Whereas with runes, it really is. Let's just say it's Casey. It's one guy. Um, he went in, he did the mission, so it's like that. That's what you got there.
Do you know anything going on kind of with Casey and runes? I mean, last I've heard, it's kind of done and over with, right? Like,
That's my feeling about it too, which I like as a developer. To be honest, I
mhm.
think the programmability is going to come via opcodes and other like overlaid kind of networks like Arch. So, and then the token protocol is fine as is.
I wanted to get your kind of input on what you meant by people will trade via Ord.
Okay, so right now you can like download Ord and inscribe stuff. You can send inscriptions to other people. So it already knows how to like act as a wallet and hold your Bitcoin, hold your ordinals, hold your runes. So you could imagine adding functions to Ord instead of transfer, it's list for sale. And you like type in which inscription and the price, and it creates a transaction. And then now your ordinal is listed for sale. And then you could like have another command called buy, and you like put in the inscription you want to buy, and it, buys it. So that could be built in to the command line, like into the protocol. And it would enable zero fee trading using the blockchain. So you don't have to go to magiceden.com. You don't have to go to ordinalswallet.com. You're just using your nodes RPC to like buy and sell ordinals.
Now, this
Would
is
that
obviously
require KC to like play ball with that, or
Yeah,
can it
or you
happen
could
on
do a
its own?
fork of it. It doesn't.
But then you need the like the ord nodes. You need new nodes basically, right? Or no?
Well, it's up to anyone that wants to buy and sell would just run it if they wanted the
I
data.
see.
Like they can just go grab the data by running this code. So
obviously we're getting into an even bigger challenges. Now we're talking about forking ord. Does that mean we're basically making our own meta protocol fork off of
no,
ord?
no. It's just indexing if something's for sale or not. It doesn't change any of Ord's stuff.
Got it. So this would be more similar to like
It's
an
any UTXO you could sell. It
gotcha.
doesn't even matter what protocol, if it's Ord or not, I guess. Yeah, I mean maybe it would be its own separate thing, but
So individuals could be building with the existing ord, I guess, meta protocol and building on top of it in layers to add functionality and features. And that would, if in
yeah.
effect, create more functionality within ord itself.
Just yeah, within
Is that
ordinals
effectively what
and
OpNet is
inscriptions.
doing? They have
Well,
forked ord sort of,
no, I think they're using Ord to like put instructions on chain.
right? But what's the part where you have to like wrap into their meta protocol to use it?
No, so Opcat won't have wrapping.
No, not OpCat, OpNet. Sorry.
OpNet, yeah, that would be OpNet. I mean, yeah, Harry, do you understand? I guess the concept of OpNet. Is it a separate meta protocol? Um, aside from ord,
Yep.
it
I
would be.
mean, yeah. I don't know how bridging or any of that works. I know they're burning some Bitcoin when you spend it's like similar to Counterparty.
Got it. No, that's fair. And it sounds like they're trying to be maybe to a degree interoperable with ord, but not necessarily fully, right? Like my understanding is that OpNet will have its own token standard, will have its own um, you know um, explorer and everything that a chain might need, and especially with like the wallet itself. You're gonna need a wallet that supports OpNet. It's not like Xverse would support it on day one. I guess OpNet's closest comparable is really like Atomicals and even Benny's track tap ecosystem. Have you kind of kept up with the tap track ecosystem? Because it seems like they were doing some ICP partnerships. They were there was a lot of hype very early on, and the community was very strong. But it feels like myself included, a lot of people are just burnt out by high expectations, high hype, and nothing really coming to fruition. There was supposed to be builders, developers, an ecosystem built out around tap tracks, smart contracts, and yeah, where is Benny the Dev these days?
I'll tell you what, Tap is our top volume on Ordinal's wallet. We're effectively a Tap market, and people are buying and selling it daily. That's really all I know.
But obviously, I was an early kind of tap track adopter. Um, it doesn't seem like there's. I mean, I guess I'm just looking at the 7-day volume, and this ghosty cash token does
Hmm.
close to Bitcoin of volume every single week, which is quite interesting. I remember them being a BRC20 originally, so it sounds like, or at least it looks like, they've actually migrated to TAP as a token standard.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, so I think Benny was he's also trying to do an EVM style programmability with the Tap stuff.
and I think that's where kind of the leveraging ICP comes into play, or something along those lines. Yeah, I'm not.
But
Yeah,
yeah, so there's gonna be like three options to use the EVM. It's gonna be like you can use the BRC20 EVM, you can use the OpNet EVM, you could use the Tap EVM. maybe they somehow are able to squeeze an EVM into Arch too, and you could use it there. It's like, well, as a developer, what do you even do? You know, there's a lot of people trying to build very similar things.
Yeah, and I mean, this is all great and all, but without a massive audience to move, we haven't necessarily seen massive success of some of these adjacent, ORD competitors, really, or like meta
Yeah,
protocol competitors. Obviously, bitmaps was the key to success for Merlin getting off the ground and getting a lot of attention, especially because they had the Asian audience with BRC20 staking and so forth. Everyone thought that was like the first way to get L2 airdrop tokens, and unfortunately, that was underwhelming in terms of expectations. High TVL in terms of total value, but obviously was I think 2 or 3% in terms of total yield. And then you have Unisat, which basically leveraged the BRC20 audience to try and build Fractal as not just a side meta protocol, but a side chain to Bitcoin. So again, we're not right now. It just feels like we're fragmenting the pie, like we're moving in a horizontal layer with the with the lack of, I would say, users on the L1, which means the pie just keeps getting sliced and sliced and sliced. Excuse me, sliced over and over again. Um, but it doesn't necessarily bring net new users to Bitcoin. And I think that's like the biggest challenge that we're facing right now is there is no net new individuals coming into the ecosystem. I think those that did were kind of burnt out by mempool sniping and not necessarily getting their orders. But these new adjacent meta protocols, sidechains, L2s, they're really trying to go after the L1 user audience, and it's just vampire attacking, against what we were, very centrally oriented on. Um, yeah, it's just we're not adding more value to those that are on L1, on ORD, on Runes, on BRC20, but rather we're trying to say, hey, like, we can't do this on, like, we're giving up on trying to do things on L1, or at least giving more functionality to the L1 by just saying, hey, like, we're just going to build this L2. And the L2s can't work until the L1 works. I mean, Udi also has the same philosophy of doing as most as we can on the L1, having high volume on the L1 as much as we can with 10-minute block times. And obviously much more optimistic on teams that are trying to solve the hard problems. They're hard for a reason, but the value capture is leagues and bounds way higher than doing anything adjacent or trying to compete with it. Oftentimes I see from like a product team perspective and builder's perspective, you want to swim, with the stream, not necessarily try and fork the stream to a different direction. Anyway, it rarely works out. It's yeah, unless you can expand the pie and I guess get your stream to another ecosystem and expand your reach that way, which some L2s are approaching. They're just saying, hey, like, we have this L1 audience and we like them, but our audience really is the EVM side, and our competitors are not, the L1 and ORD and Runes, but rather uh, EVM L2s, which I have a view on that's not the path of least resistance. So I'm less optimistic in some of those approaches, and I know in our last spaces, Robert kind of kept alluding to this fact, like, why try and build a worse version of Solana and then compete with Solana? Like, the competitors to any existing L2s right now are just Sol. If I'm quite honest, like, you can bring assets to any chain you want, but if you can't do it better than Sol or Monad or Mega ETH when they launch, like, you're likely going to lose, in my opinion. Like, the I don't know how you feel about this, but there's not that many devs in Bitcoin right now. Like, Harry, if you had like an estimate for like amount of competent devs building L1 products, like, is it sub 200? Is it sub 500? Like, sub 100? I don't know. Like, what's your take on there?
I don't know what competent means, you know? It's like, I don't even, am I competent?
I mean, I'd like
um,
to think that you are, considering you built Ordinal's wallet from scratch. So I think most other devs only speak very highly of your ability to push products into production. Oftentimes, basically building in prod, as you said in Nashville, you're just like, yeah, like we don't build and test it. We just
yeah,
push
dev is
everything to
prod.
prod.
Just deploy it directly to the blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, for better and for worse, like that you do, you're able to ship faster in that way, but at the sacrifice of user experience, as sometimes I struggled with Ordinal's wallet, and many other people were just like, hey, like Harry, it's broken now, please fix. You're just like, fuck. I guess everything broke after pushing this to prod.
Yeah, I mean, there was recently this guy on Lex Friedman that he like makes all these AI startups. He's like killing it, and that's his whole ethos too. It's pretty cool to see other people out there like that.
Sorry,
Um,
what is his name? I'm just gonna
like
quickly.
Levels IO, he makes like AI photo shoots so you can get like cool headshots for like LinkedIn and like Tinder. That's like his biggest product.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
like just makes you look cool.
So I mean, like
LinkedIn to Tinder and all the
Yeah.
occasions in between.
he just builds whatever he thinks is cool in the moment. Is that kind of his philosophy?
Yeah. He's built like he says he's got like a 5% hit rate. But
Oh
he
wow,
just
actually, you're right. Only 4 of the 70 projects I made actually made any money. Interesting.
but this is like one guy like deploying to, his servers and like building crazy apps. And he's using AI like I want to see this guy get involved with crypto as well. Like AI plus crypto, like it doesn't really matter how many Bitcoin devs there are as long as like these systems start to get fleshed out.
Well, the thing is, once we have AI and crypto and these wallets are controlled by AI, they're just gonna farm points, tokens, and start rugging us when they realize that.
Yeah. But like I've had AI write Solana smart contracts and Ethereum smart contracts. And like they work. So it's like pretty I'm not sure if they're audited and like good, but you can imagine just like talking to a computer and like telling it to build like pump fun on crack. I mean whatever it is, like
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of interesting because OpenAI basically indexes everything on the internet. So as long as there's an open source repo, open source code somewhere, it's pretty good at learning like what works and what doesn't. I'm sure there's there's checks and balances that you need to do to make sure that it doesn't have any sort of redundancies, but yeah, that's quite interesting. You'd think that it would be easier to build with Bitcoin, considering we have these like AI tools, but I guess it's not good for Bitcoin products in any way, shape, or form because it
I think
doesn't.
I think the real issue is there's not enough like actual businesses you can build on Bitcoin right now. You know what I mean? So it's just forced everyone to kind of, build centralized exchanges or build L2 kind of things, or there's just like everything that can be built kind of has.
Yeah,
And then we're not limited in the creative department. There's a lot of creativity in the space. It's really like we're kind of blocked, you know? That's just the reality.
yeah, I guess that is relatively true. I mean, I'd love to see the opportunity to build become easier, but because you don't necessarily have smart contracts just yet, it just becomes very, very difficult to do anything. And Offcat isn't necessarily going to bring smart contracts to Bitcoin either, right? Like sure, it'll open up more functionality in trustless manners, but I don't think we're gonna have a VM just because of it. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's kind of my direction that I'm kind of taking with things.
Yeah, and it's like there's also the idea like just when you snap your fingers and smart contracts are enabled on Bitcoin, right? Like let's just say Arch was on mainnet today. and you have smart contracts, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a bunch of developers that automatically just know how to use it and know how to build with it, build transactions, like do all these different things. Like a lot of the reason why you have so much building and iterations and forking going on Ethereum is because you have so many SDKs and TypeScript libraries and open source smart contracts that you literally can just front end build. So then you can focus more on creative applications of those, of those libraries. Like that stuff doesn't exist on day one. It all has to be built, if not by the project itself or the protocol itself, if then the community has to do it, which takes time. So once those things start to become available, then you can have a shitload more of like actual utility and applications being built leveraging that programmability. But it's all got to exist first. Otherwise it requires like the devs to be straight up cracked, which, like, if you have 100 or 200 Bitcoin developers, like, who of those are the cracked devs that actually want to dive in and learn and like deal with the frustration of learning something new? Like that's the growing pains that you have to deal with. And then we can get to the prediction markets and the YOLO games and the Russian roulettes and all the different things that degens want to play with. That's gonna eventually come, but it's a process.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely a process and infrastructure is lacking. I wanted to ask you guys if you guys heard of this tool called Maestro. So I haven't spoke to them yet, but it sounds very interesting. They are trying to be basically the Alchemy and Infura of UTXO based blockchain building. Harry, I know you're probably much closer to infrastructure stacks than I am, but and I guess even Matt, like, is Maestro something that you guys use quite regularly? Obviously, I'm still kind of learning where it kind of fits in, but
We've actually contracted them to build our block explorer because of their vast experience in indexing UTXOs. They've done it across not just Bitcoin, but they've done it across Cardano, and Dogecoin as well. So, like, these are the guys when it comes to indexing UTXO transactions. And I believe also I see Hex in there. I think they're going to be using them as well for some RPC stuff. Use for their building on Arch. So I think that they're top notch from what I understand, and I don't know if anybody else has indexed more transactions within the UTXO landscape than Maestro, is what I understand.
yeah, no, it seems very, very cool. I know they've been around for a little bit, considering I see a lot of their previous kind of experience, or I guess their centralized experience or their centralized focus at the time was Cardano. And this is kind of like alluding to what I mentioned before. Like Cardano devs are coming to Bitcoin. Cardano is a UTXO based blockchain with smart contracts, so it's quite interesting to see things of these nature form. I mean, Beston's thought was trying to be kind of the infrastructure layer of a lot of the things that devs are building. But if we can have a better solution, and if you're saying Maestro is top notch from your experience, then certainly we can have a very, very interesting infrastructure suite start to form on the L1 itself. And I don't know if they've gotten into APIs and tooling for runes and ordinals just yet, or even indexing optimizations and so forth. But it seems like they've launched some APIs for dunes. Not sure if those are just Doge runes, but it sounds like it. Yeah,
Can you
Harry.
pin their Twitter account? I've never heard of them.
No? Dude, I've actually never pinned a post before, so
Oh, nice.
walk me through how to do this. Where's the button?
If you just go on a post, you can click like the share button.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Here, give me a sec. Yeah, it could be a good like repo for people for people to leverage. I mean, the fact that they're looking at like, so just share. Oh, I got it.
Hey Matt, you're talking about the Arch Block Explorer. I'm just curious, like, what can we kind of expect to see from that? Are you going to be able to see like program execution and like functions and all that stuff?
Yep, 100%. It'll basically be exactly like SoulScan, where you can see all the different invocations and yeah, literally everything. You'll be able to see.
Perfect. I love SoulScan.
In addition to obviously your vanilla UTXO basic Bitcoin indexing as well.
Yeah, very cool. Harry, have you gotten a chance to take a quick look at Maestro actually?
Yeah, I'm just looking at them now.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool. I'm curious. I'm sure there, some of these meta protocols or like tap track, glitter, atomicals and so forth are likely looking at this as a solution. Um, yeah, I mean they say that they have Bitcoin support, which is pretty cool. Bitcoin, Cardano, and Dogecoin, dApp development, blockchain indexers. It seems kind of interesting. Um, Someone else just wanted to join. Davis. I'm not
So
sure.
I'll put it into perspective though. Like I'm not going to tell you how much we're paying them, but like when we were talking, because we obviously need to build a block explorer so people can see what's going on inside the system. But we talked to the usual suspects in the indexing department, on the Ethereum side, like an Alchemy and some others that are more like RPC infrastructure providers on Ethereum and Solana. And the price that they quoted us was like more than 10 times what Maestro quoted us, simply because like they don't these companies on Ethereum do not have UTXO experience. Like they're going to have to hire developers and learn how to index these platforms, these blockchains effectively. Whereas Maestro has been doing this for years in the relevant UTXO ecosystem, so they're used to it. So I think that that's quite interesting that they're here supporting the builders right now, as opposed to the usual suspects from the Ethereum side who really have no interest unless you're willing to pay them a shitload of money.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I mean, back in the heydays of building your own L2, I heard Etherscan wanted over $1 million to $2 million just to build a block explorer. They would take it obviously in tokens at that point in time, but it's just absurd as to like how well everything at that point in time was, who can build faster than your competitor. And I know Etherscan, Etherscan certainly was a very premium product. But yeah, I mean, it's good to see other infrastructure tooling come into play. The thing that we've seen over and over again in this space, building on Bitcoin, a lot of this infrastructure tends to be built by the teams themselves to get a product off the ground. And, much like we've seen on other chains, having someone else do it for you and readily available, I know it kind of takes away some control over your product, but it just makes it so much easier to build. And I mean, I know Bunzy's building some open source tooling for wallet connections and so forth, but yeah, this is quite an interesting, kind of avenue of experimentation. I know Hex is in the audience, but I'm not sure if he's seen Maestro at all. Because I know Hex has been building Saturn, so I'm kind of curious as like what maybe you guys had to build from scratch to get Saturn to the point that it is up today. And Davis, I know you just joined.
Yo, yo.
Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Things are well. Things are well.
Yeah, I'm loving all the Maestro love. I recently joined the team, and yeah, just echoing exactly what you guys were just saying and talking about. Um, yeah, we're all in on Bitcoin and UTXO, and just so bullish on this ecosystem and how quickly it's going to grow, especially with protocols like Arch. So really excited, and yeah, if you guys ever have any feature requests, dev tools that you think need build for the ecosystem, please reach out because we're all about it, and the only thing we want is to see this ecosystem grow.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear that you guys are taking a look at it. Cardano has been quite successful in some ways for like dApp development and so forth. But it seems very interesting that you guys are maybe pivoting from, I guess, just expanding your feature set. And I'm sure a lot of what was already built is very much relevant to the Bitcoin ecosystem and how it's going to form. But this is sweet. I love that you just joined ad hoc, and I'm like, who's this David guy? He's got newsletters in his bio. So I thought you were going to spam us and shill us on a weekly newsletter to sign up.
No, but I do love newsletters. So if one day I'll have a Bitcoin newsletter going out, and then I'll spam and chill. But for now, yeah, just love for the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah, no, cool. This is great. I'll take a deeper dive into it. I know I'm kind of talking a little bit more closely with the team because actually someone actually in the audience over the last couple of weeks had mentioned to me that um, this could be a value add. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to have that conversation to learn a little bit more on like how I can be helpful with some of the teams that are building, and maybe Maestro plays an integral part in what they want to achieve on Bitcoin. So appreciate you coming up here.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys have any questions too, our founders and CTOs in the audience here,
Oh, is he?
Verderas.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So
Oh,
he can dive way more into sort of the feature sets and roadmap.
I mean,
Um,
I'd love to have them up on stage if they're able to speak, but understandably, I know if they're tied up with something and just listening in the background. I didn't know I had an audience from Maestro, but that's cool.
Ask and thou shall receive.
Yeah. So got it. Yeah, I believe it's Varderas. Hey, man.
I just jumped in. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, would love to learn a little bit more about Maestro. It sounds like you and Matt have been working together on a block explorer. Um, but kind of walk me through when did you guys get into Bitcoin? And is this a new addition?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. I actually don't know about this. Is this a weekly talk? Space?
Yeah,
I
we
just.
got like two shows a week. Away like moderately degenerate at times and open ended, but the focus of the show really is just to bring awareness to some of the builders and kind of give them a space to hang out and piggyback off of each other's learnings at times. I'm obviously just learning in the process to form a more informative view, but yeah, we run this like twice a week at this point.
Yeah, sure. So Maestro's been in the business of ETXO APIs for 2.5 years. We started with Cardano because there was an opportunity to be like a leading stake pool provider for ISPOs, initial stake pool offerings, and so that's how we very early on got into like the industry in general. And then we started figuring out ways to efficiently index the Cardano UTXO ledger and provide data for dApps and wallets and all kinds of applications on there. And there was a bit of a DeFi boom at the time there because they had just released smart contracts and people were like building out tooling and APIs and a lot of dApps. So they needed like rapid real-time data. And so we saw in earlier this year, late last year, earlier this year, kind of the advent of meta protocols and all the DeFi happening on Bitcoin L1 and then also Dogecoin L1, and it was a perfect way for us to expand. And we had planned well before that to go multi-chain, and we just were waiting for the perfect opportunity for us, given excuse me, that we were we're UTXO experts. And obviously the nuances of the chains are different, but the concept, like the paradigm of UTXO, is kind of the same. So yeah, for us, seeing like the advent of these meta protocols and all of the DeFi coming into the Bitcoin and Dogecoin worlds was perfect opportunity for us to expand and finally become multi-chain. So within the last since the beginning of this year, we went really deep into how to index Bitcoin, how to understand the meta protocols, understand like what developers needed. And actually it's some people in the Cardano world in the building dApps, particularly fluid tokens. They were also expanding their DeFi products into Bitcoin. So we used them as we worked with them to provide the initial set of APIs that they now are able to use. And then we had a friend, we had the founding team of Dogify that they built a DRC20 DEX on Dogecoin. So we used we worked with these different teams to understand what would be the initial set of endpoints to provide that will be immediately useful for people building DeFi in these ecosystems that, for meta protocols. So now we're here, we're in production, fully released, and we're just continuing to expand more APIs and then building more products in general, not just REST APIs, but event managers, transaction managers, market APIs. So we're gonna very soon have the whole suite of tools for developers.
Dude, this is groundbreaking. I mean, when did you guys get into indexing runes, ordinals, BRC20s? Maybe is that right? Do you guys index those as well?
Yeah, we do. We do runes, BRC20, and inscriptions. We're currently working on specifically ordinals, actually associating the inscriptions to ordinals, and we're actually working on that right now. We just wanted to get runes out the door, which we do. Like I said, we started early this year. I would say late February. So we saw kind of at ETH Denver all of the different things happening. I mean, we spent the whole of ETH Denver going to Bitcoin side events. We didn't even go to any Ethereum or EVM events at ETH Denver, and we were okay, this is, and that's the time the week after we got back, we went deep into the meta protocols and speccing out initial products and all of that. So since then we built, and then about a little over, I think 6 weeks ago, we had actually over 2 months ago, we had a private beta. So we had a bunch of private API keys for both blockchains, and people, like I said, Fluid Tokens and Dogify and different many other projects used the private beta to give us feedback. And then about 6 weeks ago, a month ago, we released those meta protocol APIs as part of the platform self-service, just like what we had with Cardano. So now people can log in, register, create API keys for Bitcoin, and start to use the API without ever even reaching out to us.
That's wicked, man. No, I'm super excited to see more innovation around tooling, and obviously great that you guys already have the competence and experience that was lifted from another UTXO based blockchain, which certainly makes the work, I'm guessing, on the Bitcoin side that much easier. So what devs need, you just kind of just adopting the use case to Bitcoin, which is phenomenal to see. That's wicked, man.
Sure. I mean, we have plenty of work to do this, but yeah, it's a really interesting space. What I really like about Bitcoin in general is that, and this is my perspective, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but there's initially for something, whether it be a change to the L1 or a new scaling layer or whatever, there's typically a lot of demand first, and then people start building and investors start putting money into projects. I mean, obviously there's that's not always the case, but what I noticed, there's a lot more actual real demand in Bitcoin, and that I think creates a sense of healthy competition and a thriving ecosystem. Whereas in some other ecosystems, it's usually the other way around, the cart before the horse. So in that sense, it's very compelling to be in the space, and really exciting to build tooling for builders.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to see more and more of it kind of come into fruition. I guess maybe if you can share with us, are you seeing pickup from a lot of teams experimenting, in terms of developer velocity? What's that been like to see with Maestro? Are we seeing more developers try and build products and come to Maestro for infrastructure solutions, or is it a bit of a slow period?
Yeah, in general, I would say it's a bit of a slow period. the platform overall is growing. Like we're always getting more like users registering, but like the rate of growth is definitely is a bit slower than it was like earlier this year. Just given like I think the market conditions have a huge impact on like how people use the platform. It's funny because like when we see like high volume in the market, whether it be like some like DeFi, maybe whether it be like DeFi volume or like the actual price of Bitcoin, we see like a correlation with like API volume. So it actually correlates pretty tightly. So I think that's definitely an impact. I think we have we have a good handful of developers for Bitcoin that are using APIs. Some paid subscribers, which is great, which means that they need that additional like volume and throughput. I think, but to be fair, we have tons of work to do to like really be out there and meeting different teams, and also not just like finding people that will use it, but like actually being like a catalyst for people to like come to Bitcoin and build on Bitcoin. So I would say the rest of the year is very much, and a lot of the work that Davis is doing is leading that, is to like be that catalyst for the ecosystem and like help them very easily onboard to Bitcoin and be able to get started building dApps and DeFi and all kinds of applications with our data.
Yeah, awesome. No, it's very this is all very interesting and new, and I think on topic to maybe giving everyone here some hopium that that we'll finally start to see dApps on Bitcoin occur, but no doubt, things that make it easier and eliminate the need to start to create your own infrastructure and have everything off the wall. Obviously, coming from a team that seems very professional like you guys is a massive kind of moment in maybe maturity that I've noticed on the Bitcoin side, where things start to take a much more professional view, and teams that are very keen in this industry are starting to build serious things and not just degenerate toys, I suppose. Although we love those things, and I'm sure that a lot of what's built on with Maestro in mind will give us those things. So it's a net positive overall, but yeah, the infrastructure stuff needs to be serious grade. But it's been awesome to hear everything about Maestro and Matt actually using Maestro for some of his development elements. So yeah, it sounds like we're certainly off to a good start on the Bitcoin side. I know Bunzi isn't here to kind of wrap up the show, but we're kind of up on time in terms of where we're at. So tune in next week for another iteration of the show. I will catch you guys later. Thanks, Matt. Thanks everyone
guys.
for joining.
Hi guys, thank you so much. Take care.